Next 12 teams will play 40 regular season games, 20 on the road. The NBA will announce its Most Valuable Player Award today. The winner will be revealed on TNT's Inside the NBA pregame show. The three finalists are Luka Doncic of Dallas, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Oklahoma City, and Denver center Nikola Jokic. Clippers guard Russell Westbrook is a finalist for the NBA's Social Justice Champion Award. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Avitarus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy in California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your black.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, and I'm thrilled to have you hanging out with us today on our program in this, our third and final hour. In this hour, two conversations. On the backside of this hour, a tribute to my beloved father, Emory G. Smiley Sr. I lost my dad a few days ago, and you don't really know me without knowing him, and so I want to introduce you posthumously to my father. Emory G. Smiley Sr. would do that for the full half hour on the backside of this hour. But we commence this hour with Derek Black, who was raised to take over the white nationalist movement in the United States. His father was a former Grand Wizard in the KKK, and David Duke was a family friend. Derek joins us now to discuss renouncing a community of hate and becoming an anti-racist. His book is called The Klansman's Son, My Journey from White Nationalism to Anti-Racism. Derek, good to have you on. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you on the program. I mentioned a moment ago that I'm going to do a tribute to my father on the backside of this hour, but I want to start by asking you to tell me about your father. I just mentioned that your father was a former Grand Wizard in the KKK. Tell me about your dad.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I heard your announcement at the beginning. My condolences. I'm really sorry for that.
Thank you very much.
My relationship with my dad has been complicated throughout my life. I think the main thing that I continue to remember along the way is that we really have loved each other, and we continue to. It's not rejecting his beliefs and his ideology, and this relationship that we had throughout our lives did not mean to my like great enthusiasm. Actually, it didn't mean that we had to never speak again. So we don't talk much anymore, but we stayed connected, and And I feel like I look back on that experience, and I think he tended to do the best he could, and he thought he was doing the right thing and believed the right thing. And for a long time, I agreed with him until I didn't.
Yeah. Tell me more about what it's like to have a father who is the grand wizard in the KKK.
Yeah, when I was born, he had already been trying to build up the white power movement for decades. He and his closest friend David Duke had been really essential people, and they had gotten involved in it, really in the Nazi movement in the 1960s when they were teenagers. And then they had both formed a Klan group that they had then left in the 80s before I was born. Not because they changed their beliefs, but because they thought the Ku Klux Klan no longer was a good image. It wasn't a good name. People thought it was just exclusively violent, and they wanted to run political campaigns and run for office. And so by the time I was born, it felt like I was joining him in something that he had been working on for decades at that point. He was in his 40s, and it felt like by becoming involved in it, I could sort of join him in the passion of his life and show him even like a new way to do it, a better way to do it from younger eyes.
Yeah. I've got an audience of grown folks, so they can handle the answer to the question I want to ask now. But tell me more specifically, with some specificity, tell me about your father's views.
Mm-hmm. So he believes in white nationalism or white power. So it's like a social movement, which I always try to distinguish from just racism. You know, people can have all kinds of awful racist beliefs, and it doesn't make them a part of this ideology or this movement. And there's groups of tens of thousands of people, I think at the most, who are members of it. And white nationalism fundamentally believes that race is this real biological thing that predicts everything about a person, that tells them who is going to be smarter and who's going to be more likely to commit crime and all this stuff. Like, I think their whole worldview is based on that. And then it is tied in with anti-Semitism. Like, they are deeply, deeply committed to the idea that there is a global conspiracy being run by basically every Jewish person in the world, and that anti-racist movements are not being organized by people of color, but actually are being organized by Jewish people. And it's really conspiratorial. It is a worldview that they try to filter everything through. They have radio shows where they filter the news and try to explain how it's all coming through this white nationalist lens.
I mentioned earlier, and you, of course, referenced it yourself a moment ago, that David Duke was your dad's best friend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they met when they were teenagers.
I said earlier at the top of this conversation that you were raised to take over the white nationalist movement in this country, given that your father had been a former Grand Wizard in the KKK. When we come forward, I want to ask Derek what that is like. I want to go inside his house, have him take us inside his house. What is it like when your father has been the former Grand Wizard of the KKK and you are being trained, you are being indoctrinated, you are being groomed to take over this white nationalist movement in the U.S.? We'll talk about that part, as they say, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze up to 70 calories per serving.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
if I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to gawon'twait.com.
This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley in conversation with R. Derek Black about his new book. It's called The Klansman's Son, My Journey from White Nationalism to Anti-Racism. Let me ask you, Derek, what it's like when you are being raised in a household where your father has been a former Grand Wizard in the Klan. His best friend and family friend is David Duke. And they are indoctrinating you, grooming you, raising you to take over this white nationalist movement in the United States. Take me inside your house. I'm just trying to understand better your childhood.
Yeah, I think it didn't look exactly how people imagine it. We lived in South Florida. It was pretty racially diverse. It had the largest population of Jewish people per capita in the U.S. And initially, I went to public schools up until I was 9 years old, and then they took me out of the public schools because they didn't like how diverse it was. And so after that, I was homeschooled, and I was really genuinely pretty isolated. I didn't feel all that lonely, and I went out and did extracurriculars, but I learned really quickly not to talk about this part of my life. I separated, I thought, who I was from the time I was 9 years old. I set up 2 websites. I set up a personal website where I wrote about Spider-Man and my hobbies, and I set up another one that was about white nationalism for kids. And whenever people would see me on TV, I would just try to change the subject, and usually they were willing to do that. You know, they were willing to be like, you don't want to talk about this, and I don't know how to talk about this with you. And so when I was 12, 13, 14, it felt like I was leading 2 lives, staying at my house, living in this community that didn't understand white nationalism, and then traveling with my dad around the country to go to white nationalist conferences that were always in these like hotel ballrooms and hear people who were tenured professors do this fake science about race and racism and meet politicians from around the world. And I don't know, it felt like I was a part of like a secret society or something.
As a 12 or 13-year-old, how did you navigate journeying in both of those worlds?
I created this kind of cognitive dissonance in my mind. I decided that I believed what they were saying. I believed that they were right. I believed that it wasn't just about their gut feelings, like they must have all this good science because they said they did, and we had met professors who used this really outdated, wrong science that it took me a long time as an adult in college to even get through. But I believe they must be right, and the way that I split that was to say, okay, well, if their racism is right, then maybe that can apply to big numbers of people. Maybe it can be true that they want to separate the world and segregate every country in the world, and that's true when you have millions of people. But I can't believe that about individuals, because individuals aren't any particular thing. When you meet anybody, that whatever their background is not going to tell you anything about who they are. And I could see that when I was a little kid, and so I just kind of adopted this personal mantra that I was going to be open to anybody. I was never going to exclude anybody from my life without getting to know them. And for a long time, not going to school, I was able to keep both of those things true up until college when the relationships got too intense.
Were your father's views forced on you? Is this a type of coercion? Or as a young person, early in your life, did you come to believe these things, accept them for yourself?
It's impossible for me to separate that now. Like, now I'm an adult and I can look back on the fact that I was giving national television interviews arguing for white nationalism when I was 10 years old. And I felt like it was my decision. And my dad asked me over and over again before that first interview, and then after all the rest of them, are you sure that you want to do this? You don't have to. Of course you don't have to do this. And I felt like I was being a great member of the family. I was showing how much I loved my family. I was defending them. I was going on TV saying people don't understand us. They think we're hateful, but they're actually very loving. And looking back, I can't even imagine how you could put a 10-year-old on TV, and even if you ask them, and even if they say, yes, I know what I'm doing, I believe in this ideology just like you do, the idea that a 10-year-old understands what it means to believe in an ideology and is not doing this to make you proud feels very strange and naive to me. So it didn't feel like I was being coerced. It didn't feel like I was being told what I had to do, and I don't think my dad thought he was doing that either, but it's just not possible. You can't put a kid in that position and think that that is a choice.
To your point now, Derek, I'm curious as to how, as an adult, when you look back on being put on national television as a 10-year-old kid to espouse these views, how you regard the decision of your father, your parents, to put you in that position.
I think it was a terrible choice. I really wish that they had raised me in a different way, and I have sympathy for them still. Like, I still love and care about them because they thought they were doing the right thing. I went back when I was writing this book, and I was looking at old interviews where people would ask my dad at the time. They would say, how can you think that, this kid is not just indoctrinated? How can you think your child is thinking for themselves? And he would say, what is a parent supposed to do other than teach their kids what they think is right? Like, that's what any parent would do. And that was his perspective, and I think it is absolutely wrong. But I also try not to get rid of the responsibility that I think I feel, because eventually I wasn't a kid anymore. I got to be a mid-teenager and a later teenager, and I was running for office advocating for white nationalism. I won local office, and by the time I showed up at a college that ultimately really confronted me, I was, 20 years old and feeling like, I know these beliefs, I argue for them, and at that point, it was really up to me and my responsibility to decide what I was going to do next.
So tell me, as we advance the story here, tell me about that college that confronted you and when you began to see the light, as it were.
So I showed up at college, and it was the first time I had been in a school, actually, and since I was 9 years old. I'd been homeschooled, which in my case was kind of like teach yourself because my parents practiced unschooling. And I did the same thing I had done as a kid at first. I didn't bring up my background. I had one local office, and that was in national news stories from a year before, but nobody Googled me. And it was at this small liberal arts college, and I made friends. Like, a bunch of them were not white, and that was not new to me. Like, I always made friends with whoever was around me. But at the end of the day, I would always go home. I would, not have to let those relationships get too deep. And what unexpectedly happened to me at college was realizing that I have all these relationships with people. I'm keeping this from them, and it is not some passive thing where, I just don't need to bring up this, controversial topic. It's something that is hurting them. Like, they were telling me stories about their lives and ways that white supremacy had hurt them and their families, and I had no argument. I also didn't want to say, well, wait a minute, maybe those people are misunderstood, or maybe you didn't understand what they were representing, and I knew eventually I was going to get outed on campus, and all these relationships I was making were just going to implode and feel so extremely betrayed.
And were you ever outed on campus?
Yeah, it was. It only lasted for a semester that I was able to make these close relationships with people. And in the second semester, I was studying abroad, and there was an email, and student just posted all these articles that some of them had found and announced it and said, "Oh, what are we going to do about this?" You know, Derek Black goes to our school, and I just sat there in another country watching these 1,000 emails from all of these students talking about it, and people were really split between the idea that I could change and maybe they could reach out to me, and why would I come there if I didn't want to change in some way, which I personally did not think I wanted to change, versus people who were saying it doesn't matter. Like, this kid is here and is making this school a worse place and is making everybody who feels threatened by white nationalism feel unsafe. All we should be doing is trying to tell him to get out of here. And like, that was the campus that I came back to.
How did let me rephrase this. How did those persons who thought you and found you to be friendly and maybe even considered themselves a friend of yours, specifically, namely African Americans, what did you hear from them? How did they process when they came to know the truth about you and your backstory?
How it felt when I got back, I had this initial idea that it would be sort of not easy, because I knew I had kept this from people. But I thought, okay, well, you know me, though. You know that I am a good friend. You know that I'm a kind person. We've spent months together, and I know I kept this from you, but you know personally I'm not this scary, hateful person. And I got back, and yeah, they did know that, and they knew that I was lying to them. I was not telling them, and they also thought that I was incredibly naive if I thought I was going to come back to this campus and try to explain how there was a misunderstanding here, and the literal white power movement didn't mean to be hurting them, wasn't actually trying to harm them, with a misunderstanding. Oh, if you just understand, they're actually talking about science and facts, and they really mostly care about each other, and all of this naive stuff. And the second I started trying to explain it and think about it, I realized that there's no misunderstanding here. I need to wrestle with what is it that I'm representing here. I cannot claim that I am a good friend to somebody who this is legitimately hurting, and also say I'm not trying to hurt them. And if I really fast forward, there were communities of people who reached out and said, in this campus where I was really feeling incredibly isolated, people who reached out and said, would you be willing to talk to me about this belief system? And my answer was, yeah, of course. And I didn't expect to change my mind, but I started from this place of, I care about this community, and I want to figure out if there's some way to sort of meet here, sort of match or create a bridge or something. And it was years of these ideas that I had about facts and arguments and social science, and all, realizing each piece of that was ridiculous and bad evidence, and then trying to accept that it was morally wrong. And at the end of that, there was just nothing left other than to write after years, there was nothing left other than to write a letter condemning this ideology, and by extension condemning my own actions and my relationships with my family.
My view, Derek, is that we never come into the fullness of our own humanity if we cannot revel and respect the humanity of others. We will never come to the fullness, this is my view, of our own humanity unless we can respect and revel in the humanity of others. And so my question is, how did you ultimately connect to the humanity in other people?
I really love that quote, and I feel like that's something I'm not 100% sure, because I wasn't the first person to go to college. Everybody in my family had gone to college. Both of my parents had gone to college. David Duke had gone to college. They became white nationalist activists in college, and they expected I was going to become an activist more so than I was in college. But they weren't open to other people in that way. I don't know if it's that they didn't meet people who were willing to reach out to them, or if it was, I think probably more likely them not being willing to really sit with other people. But I do think that was the thing. I agree with you that was the thing that really changed my life, was the feeling that I didn't want to see myself as someone who wasn't open to the experiences and just truly trying to understand and see other people as they were. And I'm not sure if I would have felt safe doing that if I had realized how how impactful that could be. I think it felt to me like I could build relationships with people. I could be a genuine friend. I could be genuinely open to people and not try to foreclose anything or say what it was going to be or say what we had to be together. And it didn't occur to me how much that was going to change me. And it also didn't occur to me that I was coming from this belief system that if you really want to boil it down, the basis of white power is that, or any kind of segregation, is that some people can't be close to you. Some people don't belong. Some people, however you're going to define it, can't be here. And if I wanted to be open to anybody and I wanted to be close to people and I really valued other people, like ultimately it didn't occur to me at first, but I ultimately realized that I had to make a choice there. So if they were going to demand that I foreclose being close to anybody, then I had to reject them to do that.
I've got 2 minutes left in this conversation. I want to give it to you, Derek. I could have begun our conversation with this question, but I want to close with this. Why did you write this book?
I waited a long time to write it. Like, I wrote a letter condemning white nationalism over a decade ago, and while I was writing it, some of the 10-year anniversaries were coming up, and I was sitting there, on the same dates that all these things had happened, writing about it. And I was really glad that I had waited, because 10 years ago, I believed that white nationalism was this dying, tiny, marginal ideology that had no political relevance. I just wanted to stop talking about it. I just wanted to not be seen in the public anymore. I just wanted to try to move on and have people not know anything about it. But as the years went by, I realized how naive that was, and also how irresponsible it was to think that I could just say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, and then think that was enough. And so as the years went by, I recognized that it's not a movement that's powerful because they have an army or because there's millions of them or anything. It's a movement that's powerful because the ideas of white nationalism take root in a lot of much more subtle ways. And so I think it's really important to point out that there is a lot of political power here. I started writing this book after the January 6th insurrection, and there were white nationalists in that crowd urging on some of the most horrendous violence. And I think this is a moment where understanding the way that a small group of really ardent ideologues can push something much bigger than what they can do alone.
And this is why we never give up on anybody. That's my belief. We never give up on anybody, because any of us at any moment in time are capable of change for the better. The book is called The Klansman's Son, My Journey from White Nationalism to Anti-Racism. Its author is R. Derek Black. Derek, thank you for your work. Thank you for your witness. Thank you for the text. Thank you for this conversation. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Tavis.
Good to have you on this program. When we come forward in the remaining 30 minutes of today's program, a tribute to my great father, Emory G. Smiley Sr. on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
It's a Wednesday, May 8th. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Georgia's appeal court will consider former President Trump's appeal of a decision to not remove the district attorney from his election interference case in that state. In March, a judge ruled Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis, who is African American, could remain on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade was removed from the case. Trump had tried to have Willis disqualified over a romantic relationship with Wade. The National Weather Service is confirming 4 tornadoes touched down in Michigan Tuesday, leaving at least 1 person injured. A FedEx facility collapsed in Portage that's located about 50 miles south of Grand Rapids. Severe weather continues to threaten a swath of the country today, across the Ohio Valley and into the Mid-South. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every day a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year, and they're waiting. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word
monumental development for the WNBA. For the first time in the league's 27-year history, every team will have charter flights for all road games this season. In the previous 26 years, all teams were forced to travel on commercial flights. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said the use of private jets would help address concerns of travel fatigue for players and safety concerns when players had to walk through airports. The WNBA's 12 teams will play 40 regular season games, 20 on the road. The NBA will announce its Most Valuable Player Award today. The winner will be revealed on TNT's Inside the NBA pregame show. The 3 finalists are Luka Doncic of Dallas, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Oklahoma City, and Denver center Nikola Jokic. Clippers guard Russell Westbrook is a finalist for the NBA's Social Justice Champion Award. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king.
Nearly 3,000 teen drivers die in car crashes each year. Tire Rack Street Survival is designed to save lives. The one-day hands-on driving school gives teens experience in car control through exercises that include emergency braking and skid recovery. Find a class near you at TireRack.com/survive.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Let's get back to more Tavis Smiley right now.
There's a man at my house, he's so big and strong. He goes to work each day, he stays all day long. He comes home each night looking tired and beat. He sits down at the dinner table and has a bite to eat. Never look frown, always smile. When he says to me, how's my child? I said that I've been studying hard all day, trying very hard to understand the golden rule. I think I'll call this man father. I think I'll call him love. Said I'm gonna call him father. I think I'll call the man love. Yes, I will.
Next month, we will celebrate the annual ritual of Father's Day, honoring fathers or relevant father figures, as well as fatherhood, paternal bonds, and the influence of fathers in our society. They've been celebrating fathers in Europe since the Middle Ages. We started celebrating Father's Day here in the U.S. back in 1910. I wasn't around in 1910. I didn't show up until over 1964, or as far back as I can remember. I've been blessed to call Emory G. Smiley Sr. my father and to do my best to honor him, not just in June, but every single day that I am blessed to carry his surname. This June is going to be a little different. This will be my first Father's Day without my father. 2 weeks ago, I lost my dad. He'd been sick for a spell, but suddenly took a turn for the worse and made his transition on Monday, April 22nd. I kept it quiet for the past 2 weeks because I needed time to process losing my hero and how I would navigate the rest of my days without my father. I must admit, sitting here in this studio every day for the past couple weeks and doing my best to stay focused, handling the business affairs of my various enterprises and honoring a schedule of commitments kept me busy. But whenever there was downtime, there was a downpour. I traveled back home to Indiana last weekend to funeralize my father, who was buried with full military honors, the 21-gun salute and all. It was quite majestic to behold. As my 7 baby brothers and I carried his casket to its final resting place, it hit me. This was the moment that my dad had spent his entire adult life preparing us for. The day he would no longer be here to help guide us. A friend of mine once told me that no matter your age, the day you truly become a man is the day your father dies. I can only hope to become half the man that my father was. I've said many times on this program that we are who we are because somebody loved us. Let me tell you what real love looks like. A son of the South, my dad was an only child, born in a small Georgia town called Midway, so named because it was midway between 2 real cities. You blink and you escape the Jim Crow era white supremacy to which he was routinely subjected. And like a lot of black men of his generation, he joined the armed forces, the Air Force in his case, and volunteered to defend the nation that cared precious little about him. As you might imagine, I had some serious conversations with Dad about that. His answer? Limited options for a poor black boy with only a high school education. Stationed at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, he met a gorgeous girl from neighboring Gulfport named Joyce. But here's the thing. Joyce already had a child, a little boy named Tavis, handsome little boy. Emery courted Joyce, married her, and when he was just 23 years of age, petitioned the court to adopt young Tavis, a well-developed Negro child, according to court documents. He wanted to change his last name to Smiley and raise him as his own. He told Tavis's biological father, who hadn't yet shown up anyway, to kick rocks. I got this at the age of 23. About a decade ago, I was finally able to get my hands on the court affidavit wherein my father gushed about how much he loved me and why he wanted to adopt me. I couldn't stop crying, and I mean for weeks. That's what real love looks like.
He don't care if the kids are here. He's gonna raise them like they is. It's hard to find one, but if you can, you better get you another man.
One day, Tavis Smiley left his homework assignment at home, and his dad had to bring it to him at school during his lunch break. When my dad arrived, my 4th grade class was already assembled in the hallway for some activity. My dad was born with an abnormality. One leg was shorter than the other, so he always had this dip in his walk. I mean, not a full-blown 1970s pimp walk, just a little dip. When my classmates that day saw my dad walking away, it was like they were watching Denzel in that closing scene in The Preacher's Wife. You know the scene, ladies, where D is walking away wearing that long gray walk, that Denzel walk. That day, my little white classmates started screaming, "Look at Tavis's dad. Tavis's dad has the coolest walk. Wow, look at how he walks." I was cracking up. Only my dad could turn a deformity into swagger. He was a cool cat. One day I was in the car with my dad driving on the Air Force Base. Trying to avoid going all around the block, my dad looked around real quick and proceeded to head down a one-way street the wrong way. I was like, "Dad!" Sure enough, moments later, The MPs were pulling up behind us, sirens screaming, lights flashing. I'm in the passenger seat bracing for effects when these white MPs, military police, pull us over, walk up to the window, look in, and see my dad, a black male motorist, flagrantly breaking the law. Smiley, what are you doing? This is a one-way street. Without missing a beat, my dad shot right back. I'm only going one way. Charming, disarming, everybody loved my dad. When my mom and dad were still in their 20s, my mother's older sister was brutally murdered by the father of one of her two sons. And what did my dad do? He consented to he and my mother becoming the legal guardian of those two young boys and their two older sisters so they would not be split up and sent to separate foster homes. That's what real love looks like. By this point, Emery and Joyce had three boys of their own, Tavis, Garney, and Mari, and overnight the family grew by four with the addition of Pam, Phyllis, Paul, and Patrick. Pam was in the 5th grade, Phyllis in the 3rd grade, Paul and Patrick were just babies. They hadn't even started school yet. Now, if you're keeping track, my dad has now stepped up to be the caretaker of 5 kids who are not his own. After my cousins came to live with us, my parents had a few more kids of their own, Doobie, Scooter, and Dion, for a total of 10 kids. By the way, according to court documents, my dad's Air Force net monthly salary was barely $500. Fast forward a few more years, and my maternal grandmother, Big Mama, who you often hear me quote, took ill and came to live with us as well. Now my dad is the sole breadwinner for a total of 13 people. 1 kid who he adopted, 5 of his own kids, 4 nieces and nephews by marriage, his mother-in-law, his wife, and himself, all living in a trailer. We became a family of 10 kids. You will never hear me or anyone in my family refer to us as anything other than siblings, brothers, and sisters. Looking back, I sometimes wonder whether Pops ever got sick and tired of us and just wanted to run away.
Just jump in the taxi cab, like a bag and get away fast.
This is not what he signed up for. And remember, he was raised as an only child. Let me just say I know some pretty selfish only children. But not once did I ever hear my father complain. Not once. That's what real love looks like.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union Symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one.
Let's bring it back.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your blast.
Brother, keep up safe. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Let's get back to more Tavis Smiley right now.
In addition to his Air Force day job, my father, Emory G. Smiley Sr., also worked on cars, at one point delivered mail, and even started a janitorial service called Smiley & Sons to make extra money cleaning up offices on the Air Force Base after hours. As a child, I sometimes resented having to work late nights buffing floors, vacuuming, taking out trash, cleaning toilets, etc. As an adult, I have felt guilty for ever having those thoughts, given the sacrifices that my father was making daily. And speaking of guilt, when I got my first check working for Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley, I called my mother to share the good news. And my mother, being my mother, didn't hesitate to ask how much money I was making. Just got all up in my business with the quickness. I told her, and then she got quiet on the phone. Father, I started crying. How could I, in my first job out of college, be making more money than the man who had taken care of me and 12 other people all these years? I was not worthy. But that's what real love looks like. When I was 12, my sister Phyllis and I were falsely accused at our church. Without any conversation with us, the pastor stood up in front of the entire church congregation on a Sunday and lambasted Phyllis and me from the pulpit. We were gobsmacked. My dad was a very mild-mannered man, but that night, in a moment of rage, he beat Phyllis and me so severely that we wound up in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. We were both placed in foster care. Phyllis never came back home. I eventually asked the court to allow me to return home because I missed my baby brothers so dearly. I mean, I love them Negroes. Indeed, at the funeral last week, the thing that broke me was seeing my baby brothers in such deep pain. That was almost too much to bear. In any event, once I returned home from foster care, my relationship with my father, and my mother for that matter, was never quite the same. I resented him for what he did and resented her for not protecting Phyllis and me. I barely spoke to my parents all the way through high school. My father did apologize, but I guess I just wasn't ready. Once I left for college, I never looked back. Years passed before my father and I truly reconciled.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body's out for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQL.
ZQL, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQL nights. Explore our products at ZQL.com.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over. And if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Hi, this is Quentin. A little thing I love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips are how satisfying they are. The chicken strips are amazing. They're always filling, crispy, tender, and juicy. Definitely one of my favorite things on the menu. Especially when you add in that Chick-fil-A sauce. Always the perfect combination. And then personally, you know me, I'm getting a 4 count. I want as much chicken as possible. I'm that guy. Whenever I get them, whether it be lunch or for dinner, in my household, it's always a winner.
Order the chicken strips on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customer paid for their testimonial.
Let's get back to more Tavis Smiley right now.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride. Make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be.
As a child, my most precious memories with my father were watching Muhammad Ali's prize fights. My dad was a huge Ali fan. Who knew they called the champ a friend?
I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I am the king of the world. Hold it. Hold it. You're not that great. I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Indeed, one year, I hosted a fundraising event in Atlanta for the Ali Center in Ali's hometown of Louisville, on whose board I sat. Everybody who was anybody showed up that night, including a bevy of former heavyweight champions. I had called my father and told him to go see this particular tailor who was going to make him a custom tuxedo to attend an upcoming event with me. My dad was a bit curious, but thankfully he did what I asked. I sent him a first-class ticket. He flew down to Atlanta, and when he walked into the VIP reception at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and saw the champ standing there, he stared at me and he froze. I only saw my dad cry twice in his life. Once at the funeral of his father in Midway, Georgia, and the day he met Ali. As we moved from the VIP reception to the room where dinner was served, I switched the name placards on the table and sat my dad next to the champ. I sat on the opposite side of my father, and he and the champ talked all night long. Until the day he died, I always thanked Ali for being the thaw in our relationship. Life is short. Love is real. Forgive and live. From that day forward, I made it my business to always tell my father how much I loved him and how grateful I was for all the sacrifices he had made for our family. I told him how honored I was to be his number one. That's what he called me. He always called me number one.
Number one, how are you doing today? Hope you're fine. I'm doing pretty good myself. You get a chance, give me a holler, let me need to talk to you for just a few minutes, and then we'll move on. All right, take care. Dad, love you. Bye-bye.
In truth, my dad was my number one. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to live up to the example he set. Honor, respect, integrity, gratitude. But first, I'm going to take a little time off. I now know that it's not always about being strong. I have learned that grief is a manifestation of love. So I hope that you will indulge me for just a few. When they lowered my dad into the ground, I wondered whether there was anything I had forgotten to tell him. A friend comforted me. Tavis, if you thought you told him, you probably did. And if you think you forgot to tell him something, your dad likely already knew.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
It's a Wednesday, May 8th. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Georgia's appeal court will consider former President Trump's appeal of a decision to not remove the district attorney from his election interference case in that state.